Hey guys, Anime Ball X is here. As you can see the thumbnail. What if Issei trained by Great Red Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and also share this video to your friends. Let's start the video. During the Great War, an angel female and a devil male fell in love. Knowing that they would be killed by their own faction, they kept it a secret kept for 300 years into the war, until other angels start noticing a dark aura around her. Most angels thought she was trying to prevent herself from falling and left her alone. Unknown location. Meeting with each other was always a risk of being caught or followed, but this meeting was more important than any other times they met. Though he was a devil, he waited for her during the times she did the safe sex ritual, and she loved how romantic he was when they were away from the battlefield. "My darling devil," she started, "I have news of the utmost importance." She stopped to take a breath for courage. He saw the sorrow on her face and asked, "What is it, my love?" as he held both her hands in his. She looked into his eyes as tears started slowly creeping out of hers and said, "I'm with child and is due in 5 months' time." She thought he would be worried or angry bringing a half and half into this world, especially during these turbulent times, but she was shocked and happy when he held her in his arms and gave her a kiss. But all the feelings he had went south when she continued her news. "I can feel the energies within this child fighting each other for domination." She paused, "And if we don't find a way to prevent each from clashing when the child is born, it will die." He looked onto her with despair on his face, then he asked, "Does anyone in heaven know of this?" She shook her head and replied, "No, no one knows of us or this child." He stood there thinking she was sad and thinking he will leave her to her fate, but he held Chin within his right index finger and thumb, looked her in her eyes and said, "We'll have to leave heaven and the underworld behind if we want this child of ours to survive." She looked at him and asked, "Where will we go?" He replied, "The dimensional gap." Dimensional gap. Within the dimensional gap there was a great red is a massive red western dragon with a horn on its snout. His overall length measures around 100 meters, rolling around doing what appears to be cartwheels and other tricks. The couple looked at him, and when he got close the devil stood in his way. The angel, fearing for her lover's life, was about to look away but was surprised when the dragon of dragons stopped and snorted at him. "Who dares obstruct my path?" he bellowed as he looked upon the devil. "Tell me why I shouldn't smash you where you stand." The devil kneeled in front of the dragon and said, "Great Red, I am but a lowly devil and my love is an angel. I have but one request and you may do as you wish to me." At this gesture the dragon looked at the angel with his golden eye and he sniffed her. "You are with child that is half and half." She nodded at him and said yes. Great Red looked at the devil and asked him what is his request, already knowing the answer. With this the devil replied, "The mixing of light and dark energy will kill our child upon birth. We humbly ask you to help us balance the powers of both." Fearing the dragon would deny his request, the man did not raise his head to look at the dragon. Why would a dragon help a lowly devil and angel? He is a mass of power and destruction. He can easily kill them like swatting a mosquito. "Sure, I can do that," Great Red replied, "but she cannot leave the dimensional gap and has to stay on my back until after the child is born." Knowing this the couple agreed. The man was happy as he held his love and placed her on top of Great Red's back, kissing and told her he'll be right back. He left and came back within an hour with food and supplies for the stay. 5 months later, "Come on honey, one more push," the man told his love. During the 2 weeks Great Red was slowly giving some of his energy to the unborn child so that it will be born 1 part angel, 1 part devil and 1 part dragon. But now it was time for the child to be born. Even though the devil left the dimensional gap to attend to his duties and his involvement in the war, the angel never left the gap, but she left a message in heaven saying that she fears that she will fall and has left for solitude to prevent herself from becoming a fallen. Among the 3 currently in the gap, another has just entered, a baby boy with light brown eyes, crying and screaming as is being held in his mother's arms. "What should we name him, dear?" the angel asked her devil lover. He looked at her and shrugged his shoulders, indicating he had no clue. Just enjoying the bliss of just being a father. Great Red coughed, indicating he wanted to name the boy. The couple noticed this and asked Great Red to name the child and be the boy's godfather and caretaker, knowing they both had to return to their duties as angel and devil due to the ongoing war. As much as he would like to say no to the latter, he agreed. After naming the boy Issei, they came to the dimensional gap to take care of him during the times they had free, some time together and most time alone. Parents of the child, they found no one claiming the child, and the shrine maiden insisted they adopt the young boy, knowing they always pray for a child of their own. While the couple were looking at the child trying to think of a name, Great Red decided to help them one more time and with a nudge of his powers put the name into their minds. As the couple looked at each other and smiled, then said to the shrine maiden, "We shall name him Issei, Issei Hudu." The shrine maiden smiled and replied, "That's a lovely name for a boy, let's pray for his success in the future." And with that the Hudu family prayed one more time at the shrine. 6 years later, "Don't cry Iri-kun, we'll see each other again when we get bigger." A young Issei was trying to comfort his friend who just told him that their family is moving to England because of her father's job. "But Ize-kun will find new friends and forget about me." She stood in front of him crying. He held her hand and told her, "I'll never forget you, Iri-kun." When she heard this, a smile appeared on her face and she kissed him on the cheek. Ewwww why did you kiss me? He yelled in shock, because girls always kiss the boy she likes. When he heard this, his whole attitude changed as he looked at her like he was seeing something new for the first time and replied, "Ehhhhh, Iri-kun is a girl." Upon hearing this, she delivered a punch to his stomach and walked away, then looked back. Seeing her friend holding his stomach, she pouted while saying, "Stupid eyes, I can't believe he thought I was a boy." Waving goodbye to Irina and her family, Issei stood outside with his mum and asked her, "Hey mum, do you think I'll ever see her again?" She looked at her son and replied, "I'm sure you'll see her again someday when you're older." Hearing that, he smiled and walked back home holding his mother's hand. Woman wearing a cosplay outfit with bat wings attached to her back came up to him and handed him a leaflet and left on roller blades. Issei looked at the leaflet and noticed it had what appeared to be red magic circle, and underneath the circle was a sentence, "Your dreams will be granted." Must be a new cafe, Issei thought as he put the leaflet in his jacket pocket. Yuma came running to him with a smile on her face. "Sorry I'm late, I hope you didn't wait long," she said with a smile. Issei nodded his head as he noticed the yellow and white sundress she was wearing. He grabbed her hand and said, "Let's have some fun." As they were walking, Yuma told him she'd like to be back early in the evening. She was surprised when Issei stopped in front of a motorcycle and gave her a helmet to wear. After seeing Issei put on his own helmet and started the motorcycle, she put on her helmet and sat on the seat behind Issei with one hand holding onto Issei and the other holding down her dress to prevent it from flying up. Issei noticed this and decided to stop at the local mall. As they were walking around, he bought her a pair of jeans to wear. As they rode along the coast, Issei looked in his rearview mirror and noticed a sad look on Yuma's face, but was smiling when they stopped to eat at a restaurant and went on with their date at an amusement park, then drove back to the park. At the park they sat on a bench and Issei decided to talk to her about today. "Hey Yuma, did you have fun today? Cause I noticed a sad smile on your face a few times." She looked at Issei and her smile turned into a frown with tears starting falling from her eyes. "Sorry Issei, I did have fun, but I'm sad at what I have to do now." Issei looked at her with a confused look on his face and got closer to her and put his hand on her shoulders. "What's wrong, you can tell me." He smiled as he said this and looked at her. "I know you're a nice guy and I did have a wonderful time, but I have to kill you now or me and my two comrades will die." Issei took a step back and felt a sharp pain in his stomach. When he looked down, he saw a bulk of light that was in his stomach. He reached to pull it out, but it dissipated and blood started pouring out the hole in his stomach. As he fell to his knees, Yuma caught him and gave him a kiss on his lips while crying and saying she was sorry. As she was leaving, before he closed his eyes, he said her appearance changed. She grew taller, taking on a more mature appearance, and her eyes changed, taking on a darker, more evil look. Her clothing also changed dramatically, now consisting of black, strap-like objects resembling leather around and under her breasts, a thong-like piece held around her hips by three thin straps, gloves that run right up her arms with small lengths of chains hanging from them, shoulder guard-like objects on her shoulders with three large spikes sprouting from her right shoulder, and black thigh-high heel boots, and then she flew away. "I see, so this is how I die," Issei said to himself while on his knees with his body arched backwards. "At least I got a kiss before I die. I wish I could have helped her, she too beautiful to be sad." As Issei closed his eyes waiting for the end, he felt a power surge build up in his body. The feeling of his body burning was new to him. His eyes shot open as he grunted in pain. He felt an immense power about to leave his body, but then it stopped. He looked down, saw the injury he received closing and healing, then he held his head as his brain was on fire. Memories he never knew he had came rushing back at him. When everything was over, he stood up, looked down at the blood on the ground, and with a melancholy smile he said, "I guess the seal is broken. I need to talk to Uncle Red. I think I'll do it tomorrow." Making a magic circle appear, he cleaned up the blood at the park, making it look like it never happened. He then got on his motorcycle and went home. Dimensional gap, so someone tried to kill him and broke his seal. Huh, this should be fun to see his decisions, Great Red said in a low growl. Old school building. Ria sat at her desk while drinking a cup of tea and looked at the clock, then turned to Akeno and said, "I guess he didn't use the magic circle I gave him. Notify Sona that he has died, she'll know what to do." With a short bow, Akeno left the room. "Too bad, and I thought I found a new servant to join us," Ria thought to herself. Upon arriving home, Issei noticed a police car at his house. He got off his bike and ran inside shouting, "Mum, Dad, is everyone okay?" His parents along with the two officers were shocked to see him, and his mother ran to him and hugged him. As he sat down with the officers and his parents, he was told that a report came in that he had died in a crash. Issei was surprised at this information and thought that someone must have made this up to cover what really happened. After the officers left, Issei assured his parents that he was fine and he wasn't in an accident. He then went to his room and looked through his own memories, and a smile came on his face before he went to bed. It was the day after his date with Yuma, and Issei was preparing to talk with Great Red. As he teleported himself to the dimensional gap, he saw Great Red rolling around like he always do. Issei flew over to him and to talk to him. "Hey Uncle Red, did you miss me?" The dragon just huffed and looked at him before he replied, "Didn't expect you back this quick. Who killed you?" Issei just had a sad expression on his face as he said, "A fallen angel. I think someone forced her to kill me, thinking I had a powerful sacred gear." "What makes you think she was forced?" Great Red asked. And Issei went on to explain what happened during and after his date. Great Red just nodded and asked what will he do now. Well, I think I'll stay on Earth. I like my human parents and I don't want to alter the memories they have of me or just disappear from their life. Well, if you need me just call and we can talk through mental link, but before you go back let's check your power, Great Red said with a grin showing his massive canine teeth. Issei gulped as he knew the training was gonna hurt a lot. After Issei returned from the dimensional gap he lay in his bed most of the day to sort of do anything thanks to Great Red training. And noticing his power was the same it was before he had it sealed and turned human. It was a little after 2 p.m. when Issei felt the presence of a devil nearing his home. He looked out his window and saw a white-haired girl looking at his house. Then her eyes met his and he smiled at her and watched her as she left, knowing she's probably gonna report to her master. With that thought Issei went downstairs to fix himself something to eat. Old school building. Rias sat and waited for Kaneko to return. She had sent her to see how the Hudu family was dealing with the death of their son, but was surprised to see her running into the room with a shocked look on her face. Kaneko, what's wrong? You look like you seen a ghost. How is Issei's family holding up? Kaneko just looked at her and replied, he's still alive and I think he knew what I was when I was outside his home. Rias was stunned with this new information and decided to go and talk to Sona. Student council room. Inside the student council room was two young girls the same age as Rias. The first, sitting behind an office desk, was bespectacled woman in her late teens with a slim figure. Black hair styled in a short bob cut and violet eyes, with a small pair of black framed glasses on her face. Next to her standing was another bespectacled woman with long straight black that extends all the way down to her knees, with split bangs and heterochromic eyes, with a violet left eye and a light brown right eye. She also wore glasses but her frame was green. As both heard a knock on the door, the one behind the desk looked at the one standing next to her and nodded to her, implying she can answer the door. Entering the room, Rias went straight to the one behind the desk and started talking. Sona, what information did you get on Issei Hudu? Sona looked up at Rias with an arched eyebrow before talking. Tsubaki, bring the information she asked for. Tsubaki left and Sona returned her gaze back to Rias before continued speaking. Why do you need his information since he is dead and wasn't reincarnated? That information is useless now. Rias smiled and just told her that he was still alive. Sona was shocked upon hearing this. So what will you do now? She asked. No, the answer. I will invite him to the occult research club tomorrow and ask him if he would like to become a devil and join my peerage, Rias stated. It wasn't long before Tsubaki returned with a folder and handed it to Rias. Rias thanked both of them and returned to the old school building. Old school building. As Rias sat behind her desk and opened the folder, she was hoping to find something outstanding but found the information just above average. Issei's parents and bloodline was completely normal, nothing outstanding with their ancestors, no great achievement whatsoever, and the information on Issei was just above average, adopted by his parents after they found him at a shrine, and he had above average intellect. Rias had hoped for something outstanding that would blow her mind, but she wondered what if his birth parents were the ones who was not normal and extremely powerful in some way. With that thought she closed the folder. I guess I'll talk to him tomorrow, she said to herself while looking out the window. As Issei was walked through the gates of his school, he felt the presence of more devils. 13 devils. Two appear to be high class, then the rest must be their peerage, he said to himself. As he was walking he saw the same white-haired devil was outside his house looking at him. He smiled at her once more and waved to her, and she just ran away like last time. Issei was surprised when his day went on normal and no other devil was watching him, and as his break came up he went to his usual spot and lay down underneath the tree. Then he sensed the same white-haired devil coming close to him. He noticed she was mixed with yokai, and he decided to speak up. Hello, can you tell me why you keep looking at me and running away? She just stared at him without emotion and replied, why can't I sense what you are now? What do you mean? He asked. At first I could tell you were more than just human. Now I don't know what you are, she replied before continue. Buku wants to speak with you. Issei got up and followed her into the old school building. While they were walking Issei asked her for her name and she replied in a monotone voice, Koneko Tuju, and continued to walk inside the building. As they went up the stairs Issei looked at one door that was sealed and had caution tape on in preventing anyone from entering. As they reached a room on the third floor he felt the presence of 3 more devils behind the door Koneko was about to open. As Issei entered a room behind Kaneko he looked around for the other devils he sensed. The first was the male student the girls called the Prince of Quo, Yuto Kiba, a handsome young man with short blonde hair, grey eyes and a mole under his left eye. As he kept scanning the room the next one he saw was a redhead sitting behind a Victorian-styled desk. Then out of the back room came young woman with a buxom figure around the same age as Rias with very long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair is usually tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with 2 strands sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place, and she was carrying a silver cart with sweets, cake and tea. The one behind the desk motioned to Issei to have a seat on one of the couches in the room. Issei sat down noticing that everything had a Victorian design. Then she sat up and walked in front of the desk and introduced herself. Hello Issei Hudu, my name is Rias Gremarian. She was cut off as Issei raised his hand and started talking. Grimoire from the 72 Pillars of the Underworld, he asked, and she replied with a smile and a nod, then continued, I see, so you know about devils. Do you know anything else about us? Issei smiled as he accepted a cup of tea from the one who brought in the tea and said, how about we introduce ourselves first? She complied and continued the introduction, starting with the one who served him tea. This is Akeno Himejima. The one who brought you here is Kaneko Tuju, said girl, stood up, bowed to him, then sat back down and continued eating her cake, and this is Yuto Kiba. The now named Yuto Kiba came over and shook Issei's hand. They were about to continue the conversation when Akeno spoke up. Baku, how about we finish this after school? Classes are about to continue. Issei then stood up and replied, she's right, we can continue after school. I'll meet you guys back here. With a quick bow he turned and left the building, then a smile appeared on Ria's face and she thought to herself, he knows about us devils and is willing to come back after school is over. After school, Issei once again found himself in the old school building talking to Rias. So Issei, how much do you know about us? She asked. Issei then began to talk about all he knew about devils, angels, falling angels, the Great War and sacred gears, but he kept the death of God to himself, wanting to know if they knew about it and would tell him, which they never did, and he decided not to tell them that much. Then Rias asked him to tell them about himself. There's not much to tell. When I was born I was kept hidden because of what I am, so my parents hid me, and after their death I was raised by my uncle. And a few years ago I sealed my power and made it appear I was human until I died either of natural death or killed, and my seal would be broken. Everyone looked at him with either shocked or stunned expression on their faces. So are you for your family and you to take drastic measures? Akeno asked. Everyone in the room kept quiet, wanting to know more about him, but he sadly replied, sorry, I know the Grimoires are a kind and respectable family in the underworld, but I just can't talk about it right now. Rias smiled and continued the conversation. Very well Issei Huodu, I would like you to join us in the occult research club, hoping that you'll trust us and join my peerage. Issei just scratched the back of his head and replied, I'm sorry, but you won't be able to reincarnate me as a servant. If you don't believe me you can try right now. Rias smiled as she grabbed 8 crimson pawn pieces and placed them in front of him. As she said the incantation, the pawn pieces started glowing before rising above him and fell back down on the floor. She pouted a bit before smiling and talked to him one last time. Well then, since I can't have you as a servant, how about join this club as an ally? Issei stood up and shook her hand, accepting her offer, and please just call me Eyes. He smiled at his new club members. It's been 2 days since Issei joined the Orc and they just returned from exterminating a stray devil, and Issei was not impressed by their display of power. Even though her knight Yuto Kiba was fast, he lacked great defenses and Issei could still track his movements. He was slightly impressed by her rook Kaneko Tuju's strength but was disappointed when he saw lack of speed. And even though her queen had the traits of the knight, rook and bishop, she mainly used the trait of bishop to maximize her magic power. But he also noticed that she had more power hidden that she didn't use, and kind cringe at the fact that she was a sadist, but mostly he was disappointed by Rias. Even though she's from the Grimoire household, she used the power of destruction from the Baal household, thinking that one of her parent is from the house of Baal. She used too much power needed to finish of the stray. He just told himself that they were young and with time and training they'll be more powerful. After they returned, Issei drank some tea offered by Akeno and asked if she had a bishop. I do, but I can't use him right now. Issei remembered the seal room he passes by on his way up to the clubroom and the devil he sensed behind the door. After he finished his tea he left for home. It was the day after the stray devil incident and Issei decided to just relax at a park before heading to school. As he was sitting on a park bench he saw a sister carrying a suitcase that she tripped and fell face first. As he ran over to her, her veil flew off her head that he caught and turned to her, noticing her long blonde hair and green eyes. But something inside of him was telling him to hold her and protect her. He then realized he was staring at her. Then he asked, are you okay? Do you need help with anything? She smiled and started talking in Italian, but he understood her completely. I've been assigned to a church here and I got lost because I can't read the signs and I don't understand the people around me. Issei smiled and replied in Italian, I can help you and it won't be any trouble at all. She quickly grabbed his hand, said, thank you, it must God's will that led you to guide me on my path. His sweat dropped a bit knowing that God has died. He just waved his hand and said no problem. Leading her to the church, it was a quiet walk until Issei spoke up. I'm Issei Hyodu by the way, but you can call me Eyes, he told her, and she replied, Asia Argento. Then Issei continued the conversation talking about the Bible, which made Asia quite happy. As they got closer to the church, Issei felt the presence of 4 fallen angels and multiple human auras. When he got close to the church he decided to let Asia walk the rest of the way. They said their goodbyes and Issei went on his way to school. During his class he opened up a mental link with Great Red to ask him something. Hey Uncle Red, can you hear me? I need to ask you something. Then he heard the booming voice of Great Red. What is it? Bored of the living on Earth and decided to come back to the Gap. No, nothing of the sort. I met a girl today and I just had the urge to protect her and keep her to myself, Issei told him. She must have an affinity with dragons, which means she has a pure uncorrupted heart that makes us want to keep her away from all harm, Great Red replied. Issei just sighed and placed his head on top of his desk and wondered if she'll be alright and if Yuma was okay as well. After school he went to talk to Rias. Hey Baku, he said as he entered the club room. Eyes are getting used to being around us and having fun, she asked from behind her desk looking up from a stack of papers. I'm just wondering what your thought on the fallen angels in town. As long as they don't interfere with us we'll leave them and just monitor their activity, she replied, and I have sent a request to Grigory asking why they are in my territory and waiting for a reply. Is that why you didn't intervene when I was attacked, you trying to avoid conflict as much as possible, he asked with a curious look on his face. Well, she started, I was gonna resurrect you as my pawn if you had died, she said looking at her desk with a small blush on her cheeks. I see, he said with a deadpan face, then the others started coming into the room getting ready for their night doing request. I sat on the couch drinking tea then asked Rias a question that was on his mind for a couple of days, Buku I've been wondering, I know what the others do when they do a devil request, so I was wondering, what type of request do you do? Rias smiled as she answered, oh I just mostly remove curses from objects and make deals with influential people. Oh that's not too bad, he replied. As the night went on Issei was now walking home when he felt a falling angel following him, he then stopped and turned around to face his stalker who was wearing a pale violet trenchcoat over a white dress shirt with a matching ascot, black pants and shoes, and a black fedora. He then asked, so is there any particular reason you're following me fallen? The fallen angel just looked at him with a surprised look on his face before answering. Well look at this, I decided to take a walk tonight and ran into someone who's supposed to be dead. When I get back Rainier will have to explain herself. As he finished a spear of light appeared in his hand and he threw it at Issei but was surprised when he sidestepped and dodged it easily. He threw more light spears at him, but he kept dodging them and moving closer to the fallen. When he noticed that he was getting closer he tried to fly away but Issei quickly grabbed on of his legs and slammed him down to the ground. As Issei was about to punch him in the face he got distracted as a magical circle appeared close to him, and he saw Rias and Akino coming out the circle. The fallen took this time to get away from Issei. Crimson hair, you must be a woman from the house of Gremory, the fallen snared. My name is Rias Gremory, and you're attacking a friend of mine in my territory. My name is Donosik and I hope we never meet again, he said as he was glaring at Rias before he flew away. Issei just shrugged his shoulders as he was complicating what to do about Asia, Yuma now named Rainier, and the fallen Donosik. Tired from thinking too much he decided to just go home and worry about this the next day. Issei was in bed falling asleep when he sensed Rias entering his room through a magic circle. He just kept his eyes closed just wondering what she was doing in his room. To his surprise she started to disrobe and get in bed with him. Issei too tired to bother with her just let her do what she wanted even as he felt her arms wrapping around him. The next morning Rias was surprised as she woke up in Issei's lap. She shot up to look at Issei who was sitting up on his bed with a smile on his bed. Buku, why did you sneak into my room and climb into bed? But most of all, why did you get naked and started hugging me? He asked, trying not to look at the lovely mounds in front of him. She smiled with a reply, well I came to talk to you about the fallen. But when I saw you in bed I decided to join you. Issei just sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose before continuing, that because I can't sleep unless I'm naked and hugging a body pillow, and since you don't have one I decided to hug you instead, she replied with a slight blush on her face. Well anyways I'm not gonna judge what you do when you sleep but we need to get ready for school, he stated before getting of the bed. Issei, are you awake? Was heard behind his door. Yes mum'll be down in a minute, he replied before looking at Rias. Do you wanna stay for breakfast? He asked her while they were getting dressed. She just replied with a nod, mum. He shouted at the door waiting for his mother to reply, which she did, and waited for her son to continue. Can you set one more spot for breakfast? We'll be having company, he said and waited for her to reply. Oh did you make friends at school? That's wonderful, I'll set a place for your friend. Issei's sweat dropped a little wondering how he's gonna explain Rias to his parents. While his mother was happy that he made a friend at school she was not prepared for the red-headed beauty that came downstairs out of his room instead of knocking at the door to pick up her son like she expected, so the breakfast atmosphere was slightly awkward as the four of them was sitting at the table. His father was happy for his son to have such a beauty already spending the night but his mother was suspicious of her intentions towards her son. So Rias Gremory was it? Why we're in bed with my son, are you here to trick him out of his money? She asked with narrowed eyes as she stared at Rias. Rias just replied with a smile, of course not, and my family is very wealthy as we own several hotels around the world and other financial institutions. We also financed the construction of Ku Academy, she said in a voice filled with confidence. Issei and his parents were quite surprised at this information but his mother continued the conversation. I just wanted to make sure my son wasn't getting tricked because we have some news to tell him. Issei looked at his mother with a puzzling look that said please finish what need to be said, and so his mother did. Issei, your father and I are going on a vacation trip tonight for 2.5 weeks. So you'll be alone until then. He just smiled thanking it wasn't any bad and replied with his hand waving in front of him. I hope you to have a wonderful time and don't worry, I'll take care of the house while you're gone. His father finally joined the conversation with a slight lecherous smile on his face. Just don't have too much fun while we're gone. Even though we'd like a grandchild to spoil, we'll wait till you're finished with college. And with that both Issei and Rias' face turned red as a tomato. I can't believe he would say something like that," he cursed as they walked to school, and Rias just smiled at him, but he could tell it was a forced smile, like the statement his father made was an uncomfortable topic, so he decided when she's ready she'll talk about it. As they entered the school grounds, all eyes were upon him. Some girls were jealous cause they wanted to be with Issei, and the boys were glaring at him angrily cause they could never get close to Rias or Akeno. But that didn't stop there. When he arrived at his class, he overheard some girls saying that they were already dating. And some wish they made a move on Issei earlier when he first transferred into the school. But two boys stood out the most, shouting at him to leave the school so they could have the girls to themselves. The perverted duo, as everyone called them, Matsuda, also known as the perverted Baldy, a former jock and sports star, and his friend Motohama Aslo, known as perverted glasses or three size counting, claiming he can count a girl 3 measures by just looking at them. Issei human part made a mental note of not getting involved with them when they were caught and beaten by the girls of the Kendo club for peeking. Thanks for watching guys, part 1 is over. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, share, comment and subscribe. Let's meet another video.